Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more buckshot testing. I guess that's what we'll call today's test. Technically, it's probably not buckshot. It's quite a bit bigger pellets than what you would typically find in a buckshot load, but this is going to be rather interesting to see what it can do. We've never really tested a load like this before, so I'm definitely curious to see how it performs, because it could be something that's pretty nasty, or it could be a little bit more of a novelty type of load that has an interesting idea behind it, but just doesn't really work out all that amazing in practice. I don't know what we're going to get, but it should be rather interesting. But as for the shells we've got today, these are another load that Adam sent us a while back, so big thank you to him for sending some of these over. But they are some of these, some Hickory Flat Boars shells. These ones are what they call the Boar Shot. They may not look like anything immediately special, as it's kind of hard to see, but these are a 2 3/4 inch shell loaded with two 58 caliber musket balls. Apparently, going off their website, the musket balls weigh 279 grains a piece, and they're going to be moving at 1275 for a velocity. So very interesting load. Two stacked musket balls inside of a shell. From what I can tell, there's no buffer material in there. It's just what looks kind of like a heavy field wad or shot cup, if you will, with two musket balls stacked on top of each other and a little plastic overshot card in there. So we'll see how these actually perform. They may work out very nicely, and we've got two big musket balls flying down range side by side. Could be rather devastating, or this load could be just a little more of a novelty idea, and pretty soon after it leaves the muzzle, those balls are going to separate way out, or one's going to fly straight, but it's going to affect the other one and send the other one way off in no man's land. I really don't know what we're going to get, but we're going to put them to the test through several different chokes and in some ballistics gel and see how they really can perform. Since they call it the Boar Shot, you would think that these would be a pretty good hog hunting load, which they definitely can be if we have the pattern performance to do it. As for the shotgun that we're running, I brought out my Mossberg 500. Nothing fancy or special about this one. It's got a 28-inch barrel on it, but we've got 4 different chokes we're going to run today, which is everything from a cylinder bore all the way up to a full choke. So cylinder, improved cylinder, modified, and full are the 4 chokes we've got today. Now, I'll pop the constrictions up here on the side of the screen so that way you guys can see the actual constriction numbers for these particular chokes. Now, obviously, our tightest choke is the full choke at 696. With those being a 58 caliber musket ball, they're still going to have wiggle room going through the choke. They do have a wad around them, but point still stands. Technically, you might get better results if you fired it through a turkey choke or something, but I'm not going to run that risk today. That's a big hunk of lead, and I would rather not destroy a good turkey choke or something. So we'll go with the typical cylinder through full, and we'll see how they do, since these are the most common chokes that people are going to be running them in. As for our test today, what we're going to do, I've got a big sheet of paper with a white dot sprayed on it for a point of aim setup downrange. I'm going to back it up to 30 yards to start off with. Usually we pattern test stuff at 40, but since we really don't know what kind of spread we're going to have between these two musket balls, I want to give it at least a good chance at putting everything on the paper so we can see our patterns. So 30 yards is going to be the distance. We're going to have the chronograph as well. We'll take a shot through each one of our 4 chokes at that 30-yard range. I've only got 5 of these shells to work with, so we are extremely limited for that number, unfortunately. But once we see our patterns and what the different chokes do, and if there's one that's a clear winner, then we'll step it over to our ballistics gel and fire our 5th shell into that and see what we have as far as terminal performance. So first, we'll get you guys set up with a view of this target. We'll start with our cylinder bore choke, then we'll move up the range all the way till we get to the full choke, and we'll see how they actually pattern. Well, first up for our cylinder bore shot, it was pretty anemic to say the least. Will they all be like that? I don't know. Was that just a bad shell? I also don't know. It felt like I shot a 22, and our velocity read at 956. And based on how they felt and sounded, I would tend to believe that number, unfortunately. And as for our pattern performance down here, this is a 30-yard target that we took a shot at, and we did have both musket balls on the paper. One of them was way low right, and one of them was way high left. Massive spread there between the two, no question about it. We're sitting right at 32 inches of spread between those two balls for our cylinder bore choke. So bad shell, anemic loading, I don't know. We'll see if that remains consistent, but to start off with, through the cylinder bore choke, Not looking great, but now we'll throw the improved cylinder in and take another shot at this same target and see what that one does. Okay, well, unfortunately, we're still looking extremely anemic. Pretty much no recoil at all, and definitely not working the way they intended it to anyway. That one read 773 through the chrono, and I tend to believe it as well. All right, well, I mean, that's obviously much better. We've got two of them that are pretty close to each other now. That's a little more respectable, about the pattern that I kind of would hope to see. This is still the same 30-yard distance. We've got both of our improved cylinder hits right here next to each other. That's a 4.5-inch spread between those two pellets. Obviously better than the 32 that we saw with the cylinder, but I'm starting to think it's going to come down to being a little more luck of the draw than actually the chokes making much of a difference. Obviously, I do not like how anemic these have been so far. Did we get two bad shells in a row? I don't know, maybe, but I have a feeling that we're going to be pretty disappointed consistently. And there's no reason for these shells to be just absolutely anemic either. So obviously, way better pattern performance, but was it luck of the draw or not? I don't know yet, but let's throw the modified choke in the gun and take another shot and see what that one does. Well, wouldn't you know it, yet again, even our shot through the mod choke gave us 804 through the chrono, abysmal velocity, pretty much no recoil at all. These shells are just looking like a dud more than anything else, unfortunately. But now down here at our target, we continually see better and better pattern performance from them. We've got both the pellets out of our modified choke shell right next to each other, right there where you'd want them to be. That's pretty nice looking. It's right at 1 3/4 inches, so you can see the steps there on how much tighter a pattern is getting. Definitely having a little bit of choke is helping these out, no question about it. After our last shot with the improved cylinder, we didn't know if it was luck of the draw or not, but it's seeming like the more choke constriction we've got, the better we're going to get for pattern performance anyway. So, I mean, at 30 yards, if our velocity was over 1200 and we were getting those results, it would be very nice, very impressive. But these shells are just anemically weak. But we've still got one more choke, that being the full choke. So let's throw that one in. We'll take our fourth shot at the target here and see how that patterns. Is it going to be our best pattern yet or not? I don't know. Let's see. And for the fourth one, that was still very much so anemic anyway, if my camera will even focus on the chronograph here. There we go. That shot read 448 through the chrono. Obviously, we're moving a little quicker than that, but we've got some shrapnel from the wad and stuff that's in these shells. So probably a little bit of a misread, but I still think we're about 800 feet per second or so. And that is definitely not what you want to see out of these shells for velocity for sure, especially not on a 1275 claim. But as for our pattern, we have started to go the other way again. We've got one pellet a little bit low left of the white dot and one a little bit to the right of it over there. That now gave us 16 3/4 inches of spread. So there you can see all the numbers for 4 different chokes side by side. Obviously, the improved cylinder and modified choke are the two best patterns here. That mod choke did very well, but can we say that with confidence that's the actual result you'd consistently get? Probably not yet. This is one shot through each of these chokes, and clearly we've got some very finicky issues with these shells. So if the patterns are actually going to stay consistent, if we were to fire a bunch more of these shells through each of our chokes, the mod choke is the obvious winner, with the improved cylinder being a little bit closer right behind it. These are 30-yard results compared to our typical 40-yard results, so take that into account as well. But as far as pattern performance goes, we've got our answer, at least tentatively. We'll have to pin that up, and if these shells are worth it for you to even pick them up after seeing how weak they are, then maybe an improved cylinder mod might be your best bet. So as far as patterns go, you could find a combo that is absolutely hunting worthy, no doubt about it, if they stay consistent. But we've also got pretty anemic results. So let's throw some gel blocks on the table, and we'll see what they do as far as terminal performance goes. As of right now, I would not use these as a hunting load, not at that weak of a velocity. But in a defensive scenario, let's see what happens anyway, because they could be rather intriguing for that type of situation. And I should also show you guys what's going on with the wadding and stuff that's inside of those. It's just shredding itself to pieces and leaving just pieces flying all over my range. But maybe we can see a little bit better what's going on with the one that came from our cylinder bore choke. They kind of fell apart when I picked them up, but we kind of have two shot cups here. We've got what's left of the outer one that's easy to see through the shell, but then we've got what looks like a smaller diameter one that was sitting inside here that then had the musket balls loaded inside of it, and then it was loaded inside of another shot cup. Very interesting design. I mean, I know those 58 caliber musket balls would have been loose inside of the main wad, or shot cup anyway, if you want to use technical terms. So I guess they just loaded them in a smaller one, loaded the smaller one in the bigger one, and called it a day with no buffer material or anything. Maybe the reason we're getting anemic velocities is because when that shell fires, all of the powder is just blowing through the bottom of the wadding and right around the pellets and down out of our barrel. It's a possibility. Do I think we'd lose that much velocity with that happening? I don't know, but definitely not what you want to see as far as your wadding and shot cup and stuff like that goes. All right, so now we've got some ballistics gel set up down here on the table. These are two 16-inch blocks of 10% clear ballistics gel. Everything should be pretty clear for us to see exactly what's going on here. Obviously, they're pretty weak in the velocity numbers, so we're not going to be carrying a ton of energy, but sometimes lower velocity can give you a little extra penetration because the projectile won't expand. These are two lead round balls. With a good velocity, they would flatten out most likely, but with this low of a number, I kind of doubt we're going to get any kind of deformation to them. So they may penetrate a little farther than what we think. But obviously, because of how slow we're running, I'm not going to want to use these as a hunting load. So I have this block set up as a more home defense style scenario. I've got the clothing that the FBI calls for on the front of the block, that being denim, fleece, and two slightly different thicknesses of cotton t-shirt material. And I'm going to be set up at 10 feet, just like the FBI says. I've gone back to the modified choke, which showed us our best potential for a tighter spread. So although this shotgun may not be a tactical oriented shotgun, a little longer barrel and stuff like that, it's what I've got out here today, and everything is set up for FBI defensive scenario. So let's see what they would do in a home defense style situation, since they are lower velocity, much lower recoil. I mean, it's negligible at best with these, seriously. So let's see what they do as far as terminal performance goes, if these might have intrigued you as for a defensive style combination. All right, so 889 through the chrono for that shot. Very much what we were seeing earlier is in the 800s or so on average. We'll remember that number here for just a minute. When we pull our projectiles out of the gel, measure them and weigh them, we can then calculate some energy for both of these musket balls that are flying down range. So now over here at our gel block, and we see about what I thought we might have the potential of seeing coming into it. Even though these are pretty low in the velocity realm, it's not enough to get them to flatten out, which is actually what limits your penetration a lot more. You get something to expand, a lot more frontal area to slow it down in the gel. That's not what we saw here. We had both of them enter the block through our clothing up here. We had one hit a little high, one right pretty much dead center, but you see there, I mean, that's an inch and a half or so of spread, and that's only 10 feet. So pretty inconsistent kind of spread between the pellets. That's going to be close to what we saw at 30 yards with the modified choke just a few minutes ago, and we're already spread way out. So it may very well be a little bit of luck of the draw as far as your spread goes. But as far as the wounds go, the top wound definitely came out of the top of the block kind of midway through the second one right there. The actual center one, though, pretty much punched a dead center pencil hole all the way through. Some sort of little disruption right there towards the end of the first block. And then we continued on through and actually caught it right down here towards the end of the second block. It looks like total penetration is pretty close to almost 30 inches with a little bit of spring back, and it's sitting just before the 28-inch mark there. So quite a bit of penetration. Obviously, it would not feel very good to get hit by two 58 caliber musket balls in a home defense scenario. even at 800 feet per second like these are moving. So maybe this might be intriguing for those scenarios, but you're going to run into overpenetration potential pretty quickly. That would be great for a hunting scenario, but you see the velocities. Maybe at longer ranges, you're still going to have this type of penetration, but I don't know. I wouldn't want to risk it anyway, especially not with the inconsistent pattern results either, which is definitely another factor in a hunting scenario at any sort of distance. So more than enough penetration for a home defense scenario for sure. But let's pull that one musket ball out of the gel. I hoped we would have caught two, but we've got one to take a look at anyway. We'll pull it out, measure it, weigh it, and see what we actually have. All right, so back inside here on the bench, you can see the musket ball that we actually got out of the gel there. I wanted to catch both of them, but we've got one to look at anyway. Nice circular musket ball. Almost looks like they might have tumbled it or something to polish it a little bit, but you can also see there's a little bit of a dimple or some just messy stuff right there in the casting of it. So definitely not perfect. And if I spin it around, see on the left side of it, there's a little bit of a flat spot right there on the left edge. I believe that is where it was sitting up against the other musket ball in the shell. That could have maybe been where it impacted the gel, or who knows, maybe the little bit of a messy spot over here is where it impacted the gel. And what we see there is a little bit of an imprint of the clothing that it went through potentially. Either way though, still pretty round and circular. I mean, that is just barely flattened out right there at all. Not much, but pretty nice round otherwise. As for the diameter, they advertise these as a 58 caliber musket ball. We're right at .574, so these are probably a 575 musket ball, I would imagine. So I mean, technically a tiny bit undersized based on their claim, but I mean, we're right there at it, since musket balls can fluctuate a little bit depending on bore diameter and what kind of patching you run and stuff like that, as for what diameter ball you actually want to run in a musket. So we're within the realm of reason for sure. And as far as our weight goes, they say 279 as for a claim. This one is sitting at 277. We obviously didn't lose any material, that's for sure, but there may be a little bit of slight fluctuation in the weight of them anyway. But I'd say we're still well within the realm of reason there. And of course, I'll pop up on screen here what the energies would be, total weight and per musket ball at the 800 and something feet per second that we were getting out there on the range. So that way you guys can see what numbers we're actually pushing out of these at that lower velocity. All right, well, what do we think about the Hickory Flat Boars Boar Shot loads? Very hit or miss, to say the least. Extremely anemic. Not what I expected there, that's for sure. Two 279 grain lead round balls at a supposed 1275 would have been a pretty stout load. But when they're flying at 800, little different story. Now, obviously, can they actually hunt deer and stuff like that? Yes, there have probably been old colonial flintlocks, black powder muzzleloaders, cap and ball muzzleloaders, you know, whatever the case is, that have equal or less ballistic capability than that and can absolutely take deer. We saw what the penetration can do, but ideally for me, it's probably not going to be a hunting load. And we saw the penetration in a defensive type of scenario, probably a little too much for that as well. Definitely over penetration. And when you've got two round balls like that are not deforming in any sort of tissue material, there's a decent chance they punch through a door or a wall or a couple walls before they stop, even at the lower velocity. So pretty hit or miss. The patterns, it seemed like a modified choke was our best bet until we got an equal pattern at 10 feet as we did at 30 yards. So, I mean, that shows you right there, we've got inconsistency in the spread as well. So I don't know what to make of these. On one hand, very disappointing and a pretty terrible load. On the other hand, they've still got potential. They've got the penetration to do something, but it's just going to come down to what you think about them. Are they a load you would ever use for anything practical? I believe these are close to $20 for a 5-round pack. So you're looking at roughly $4 a shell. Are they worth that? Probably not. So it's going to be a case of to each their own on these, whatever you think about them. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Is that about what you expected? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any any of these Hickory Flat Boars Boar Shot loads? And if so, what kind of results have you seen? Are these loads anything you would ever use for anything practical? Or do you kind of feel the same as I do, where maybe it could be interesting for some situations, but probably not the best or the most ideal loading for just about anything, really? And let me know what else you might want to see. I don't have any more of these Boar Shot loads left, but if there's something else that we need to investigate with them and do with them, then let me know and we'll see about getting some more of them to test, potentially anyway. But just let me know all your thoughts about them down in the comments. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.